I guess we can start. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining the webinar today. It's really great to see you all here connected with us. I'm Julia. I'm a senior marketing manager at CoreMedia, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to today's session on actually achieving modular content for omnichannel personalization. In this joint webinar between Urbina Consulting and CoreMedia, Noz and Ulrike will bring you clarity to the often very complicated world of modular content and how it fits into the bigger picture of omnichannel personalization. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. We will have some time at the end for discussion, and of course, the recording will be available afterwards as well. So let's dive in, and let's start by introducing the speakers. Uli, would you please take it from here?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Uli, short for Ulrike, a lot easier to pronounce, I know. I am the VP of Customer Growth here at CoreMedia. I have a long history with CMSs, and yes, specifically CoreMedia started to work as a solution architect before I then also joined the sales department, and now I'm in the customer growth department. So long-standing history of all my content and all my history. I've seen the business side as well as the technical side of things in the B2C, in the B2B world, as well as with B2E customers. So I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I have seen a lot with very different customers. And just to summarize that, I'm definitely a nerd. I consider myself as a nerd. And I think that's all for me today. So Noz, how about you?
And you write. You have a blog.
I do write on the CoreMedia blog a lot. That's true. That is true.
Yes, thank you very much, Uli. So I'm going to do the same. My name is Noz Urbina. Similar experience, just over 2 decades in content strategy and modeling. So not strictly CMS, but always working with CMSs. So my experience actually started in authoring solutions and how we structured information from the very beginning to manage it effectively in the CMS. So my focus has always been on adaptive and omnichannel. We used to say multi-channel 20 years ago, before there was an iPhone. I wrote a book called Content Strategy, Connecting the Dots Between Business, Brand, and Benefits with my co-author, Rahel and Bailey. And I have founded 2 organizations in my time, Urbina Consulting, which is our consulting group, and the Omnichannel organization, which was a conference. It was one of the first conferences to go online because of COVID. And then we decided that actually it would just make sense if, rather than having everything crushed into 4 days once a year, we will release 2 podcasts a month and did webinars all year round. So now we do a year-round on-demand learning through OmnichannelX, so people can register for free resources from there. My background has been in all sorts of different companies, as you can see on the right. Been working with the world's largest brands since straight out of the university, because it's only the world's largest brands who are interested in talking about structured component content 20 years ago. But now it's becoming very popular. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is what's the goal? What are we trying to do with modular and component content? What holds us back, which is, I think, one of the most important things, because you may have seen many presentations talking to you about how great it is and how great it will be when you have modular content, but not enough that talk about why is this difficult, and where are the things, what do we need to think about in order to actually be successful? What could be better with how we approach it? How could it be better? And then how other brands have had real success. And then Uli is going to show you an actual demo. So I give a lot of presentations and people always say, I would love to see a system. And so this is going to be good because you will actually be able to hear my talking about the theory and how we've done it in projects, and actually then see a system that can do such things. So our kind of the high level goal that we're talking about here is going beyond the age of the page. I would say that one of the most difficult mindset shifts for people to make when they're looking at moving to modular content is managing content as an asset, separate from format and channel. So when I say content as an asset, you've heard of content management systems, even digital asset management systems, but that's the difference between managing content in those traditional systems and managing it truly as a business asset separate from its end format and channel, with a scalable and efficient process. I call this going beyond the age of the page, or industrial strength content processes, moving from something where we're kind of handcrafting these digital assets or web pages and then publishing them to something which has like an assembly line where we know how to use all of the individual components and assemble them in different and efficient ways. First thing that's holding us back is how we work and how we are organized in organizations. Typically, we have our various departmental heads who have their various bright ideas, who present those bright ideas to their managers to get budget. Sometimes there'll be a little bit of cross communication if you're lucky. But then we just go to market through the channels that we own. So we may own the newsletter, or we may own apps. We may own doing all the video content or content marketing, or some slice of the various customer touch points. There's a lot of attention, and I do whole sessions and workshops on this about how you measure it. There's a lot of attention on eyeballs. Are we getting people looking at our stuff? That's sort of the easiest thing, and therefore it's kind of become the de facto standard. Did people click the newsletter? Did they load the page? Did we get a like? Stuff like that. And we're all very happy with ourselves if we get eyeballs. And if there's an agency involved, that's often where they take the money and run, because you gave them some money, they created some content, it got some attention, and transaction complete. But over time, these various campaign-based or deliverable-based approaches don't perform as they should. And that has to do with the fact that at the end of this whole process was a human being who did not want a great campaign or a great white paper or a great brochure. They had a bigger relationship goal for their interaction with you. They're looking to you to learn something, to accomplish something, to do something that they want to do, and they wanted your help. So what we can do better is taking a different approach to how we think about the customer and aligning our work, not necessarily across the entire enterprise, not everybody singing together in perfect harmony, because I've never seen that happen either, but taking a more coordinated approach across more channels and touch points to have as much as possible, our persona or customer journey based KPIs. So rather than measuring, did my page get traffic, measuring, did the people who saw my page move along in their journey? Did they move along to learn more? Did they convert? Did they inquire for more information? Did they contact us? What are the calls to action? What are the metrics that tell me this person is moving along their journey and having a deeper relationship with us? To do that, you need a customer-centric strategy as opposed to simply a content strategy. You need to have some sort of structures for omnichannel governance. Who gets to decide what, who approves what, when there's standards to be set or to be complied with, when we choose language and terminology, who gets to decide, where is it applied, and so on and so on. You need rules on a team. If we were trying to play football or basketball, nobody knew the rules, you wouldn't have an effective team. So we don't like rules, but they actually allow us to collaborate. Writing down those rules. So what are the standards? What makes a good piece of modular content? How do I plan a piece of modular content? How do I run an ideation or market planning workshop with modules in mind? And then cross-platform content and categorization. So if my content is going to go out across multiple platforms, have I tagged it and structured it and categorized it in a consistent way? So can I run it out to all those channels? And then can I run business reporting and metrics across all those channels? Because I'm able to track consistent things across my different channels. And this is, of course, a virtuous loop. The more we do this, the more we watch what our customers actually do, the better our insights are to make better strategy, governance, standards, and tagging. This, when you put it all together, has been really, that's what really moves the needle. It's really transformational. I've mentioned the term omnichannel several times. I just want to double click on what I mean by omnichannel versus multi-channel. The multi-channel idea, what we were doing before, and Uli, had that experience. We would get asked to come into customer environments, and they would just want to publish the same thing on multiple channels. The content was available in multiple formats, or you could buy online, and you could buy via the app, and you could buy in a store. This omnichannel is taking into account the multi-touch point reality of a relationship. So I'm going to be using an app. I probably might be using an app when I walk into the store, and I might walk into a store and talk to a human being who also has an app that's special for them as a staff member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are constantly using multiple devices and multiple touch points every day. And we're looking at the journey is looking at how all of that works in an integrated way together. And when I say omnichannel, I really do mean omnichannel. I think that my background is actually in technical communications, which I used to be quite embarrassed about saying, but now I let my nerd flag fly, because that's where we had engineers and pilots and doctors and nurses and maintainers in 50 languages, and they wanted it in 3 different formats. And if it was wrong, someone could die or fall out of a plane. So the principles for getting it right on multiple channels with consistent messaging and branding have been being built for decades, but now they're becoming popular everywhere. And because the channel explosion happened and is not stopping, there are new channels and new ways we get our content out all the time. So all of this is to help you prepare for the future of digital experience. What our clients are saying that they want, and this is kind of having this in mind, will help you when you're trying to make your initiative happen, when you're trying to get the support of your colleagues, get them to understand what this is potentially going to do. I find that having this language of why are we doing this, very valuable. So things like next best action. So if you've heard of your organization saying we want to use all available data to determine what to send, what to show, what to do, either with hyper-personalization or simply more powerful intranets, where we're using our insights as a recommendation engine to tell our own people, if you call, before you go to do a sales call with this contact, read up on these data sheets, or read this latest news, or present them with this latest research. So whether it's a human or a machine, understanding what the next best action is in a given situation. Improving the digital experience. A lot of us are still delivering in often antiquated formats. We're in static web pages that don't change depending on who's looked at them. Our staff experiences are not good. People don't like handcrafting lots of different outputs, copying and pasting between brochures, copying and pasting between print and web content, or between microsites and the main site, et cetera, et cetera. It's boring, it's confusing, it's error prone, and then it's not good for the audiences. Better metrics. A lot of people are kind of frustrated the fact that we keep talking about clicks and shares and views when we really want to map this to business metrics. How is this performing? How is this content investment performing? How are we, if we invest in developing a new piece of content and we put it out in multiple channels, how did that whole endeavor perform for us, rather than measuring a single touch point or the analytics of one channel? Better personalization. I think that's pretty simple. The right content, right person, right channel, right moment, etc. Better leverage. You saw I work with the world's largest companies, but no one has enough money to waste money. Everyone wants more ROI, that we want more scalability and reach from everything that we've invested in. And global. How do we balance global and local needs while maintaining consistency and data integrity? And then you may have seen I'm working a lot in pharmaceuticals, in banking, financial technology. So compliance is a major factor. The things that can make that work are the journey. The number of people the number of companies I've worked with who want us to do modular content, but have not thought about the who, what, when, where, and why of that content. What modules do we want? How do we know we want those modules? Who's going to look at them? What are they going to do next when they've looked at them? What context are they going to be looking at them in? All of this is mapping out the journey. And this is what having that journey associated plan before you start creating modules will make your use of modules much more effective. This idea I talked about, that a module is not just a piece of your old format. So it's not a chunk of a web page. It's not just a chunk of a brochure. It's actually content that is outside and raw and ready for multiple documents or deliverables. Tagging. When you chop stuff into modules, you have little bits, and then you need tagging to help you deliver them, adapt them, automate them, and also making sure that they look good when you put them back together. Because if someone did their modules in one way with one structure, and then someone did them in another way, when you combine them, they're not going to look like coherent. So tagging is very important. Automation. You can now leverage AI to really improve or accelerate your creation and planning of modules. Also something I've done other workshops about. Content as a service. So can you start to expose modules around your business to other departments? Could they leverage your content? We're seeing several companies who are kind of going, whoa, we did this for us, but actually, if we talk to the department down the hall, they might have some assets which we could share. And then product planning, considering your content to be an information product, meaning you plan your modules with research, with the requirements, with the design process, through to operations and continuous improvement. Really thinking, what is my 1.0 set of content modules and features, and then having a roadmap to getting yourself into more capability in the future. Your first implementation of modules should be your worst implementation of modules, not your best implementation of modules. Because then from then on, you're going to learn, you're going to improve, more people are going to come on board. Don't try to do everything on your first go, or else that's really asking to slow down your project and really hurt things. So I've used the word modules quite a bit. I'm going to also just check in case anyone is getting confused with any other terms you may have heard. So I'm talking about modules or modular components. You may have heard about content in blocks, topic-based content, atomic content, or molecular content, or knowledge objects. All of these are basically the same thing, a different approach to the containers in which content lives and moves. So we're trying to get to content that works like Lego, where we have our little pieces where we can build bigger components and connect our content. It replaces this page or document metaphor, as I said at the beginning, moving beyond the age of the page. To visualize a bit, we want to move you to this bucket of Lego, a pool of modular components, where for a particular need, you can map out what modules I might need for this context. So in a certain scenario, I might need these modules. In another scenario, I might need those modules, and so on and so on. So we can pull out the right Lego pieces to construct the experience that we want for the right situation. Simple example, I'm working with here one of our banking customers. And this was a common situation they had across all product lines across the company. So they had customers which are targeted by profile on social media. So we're targeting, for example, high value earners in the UK, et cetera, who are interested in travel. And they click a promotion. It could be a newsletter, email, but let's talk about social media for now. So the customer is there on their own journey. They are considering whether to switch suppliers based on the rewards packages and benefits for frequent travelers. And we kind of appear during that journey and offer them something that might be of interest. So they click on it. So the customer then clicks in and says, oh, my bank actually might have some useful info here. What would happen is they would land on static pages, pages that had been built in a page builder with this layout, within this order, with these related items. And offers sometimes didn't make sense for the campaign or the specific customer. So, for example, they would get offered packages that the target audience already had. So, customer is not happy. What we did is we broke all these pages into modules, and that allowed us to move them around, change where they were placed based on the incoming link to this page. So if I've done a promotion or I've done a newsletter, I can know exactly who came into this page. So it's the same page, but we're going to remove irrelevant promotions and replace the top content with the most relevant content for that user or context. If they're logged in, we could even be more specific and detect if they have been making travel-related purchases and offer very, very specific things. But even just from the URL, we know we want to put certain things up at the top and provide certain offers. So now we have a client who says, oh, wait, my current package already does this, and there's even add-ons I can get. So instead of losing a customer, we made a customer aware of offerings that they didn't know that they already had, and upsold them to new offerings by presenting them the right modular content at the right time. I'm going to zoom in. That's kind of at a high level for the modules. This is another example from our pharmaceutical work. In pharmaceuticals, we're constantly talking about studies. All over the place, you're making statements about this was found in that study, and this drug is good because of that study, or you shouldn't combine these drugs because of that study. And studies have a consistent structure. They have a name, they have the phase. You may have heard phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, the methods, the patients, the design, etc. And within this study module, we have these sub-components, these subfields where we can decide exactly how they look on different layouts, from everything from presentation slides to print PDFs. And we just pipe out what little bit of the study do we want to appear where on these different outputs. What this does is it gives you future proofing. If you have been thoughtful about how you structure a module, then when a new channel, like you want a rich search result, or the metaverse comes out, or an AI chatbot, you can make just a new connection between this part of a study and this part of the output. This is what we call a content model. And having a content model helps you future-proof and ensure success with your modular approach. It describes the important subcomponents of your content, and it enables better automation, reuse, and personalization. And it's the basis of headless CMSs. So in a traditional CMS, everything is kind of a page. So we're authoring, managing, and storing and delivering pages. In a headless CMS, we're authoring, managing, and delivering structured components, which we can deliver into all sorts of outputs. Headless offers better omnichannel efficiency, reuse, personalization, etc. And as you'll see in a minute, there's such a thing as a hybrid CMS, which can offer the best of both worlds. So you can see pages, and you can see what modules will look like on pages, but also have the full flexibility of the fact that under the hood, they're not really pages. They're actually nicely structured content, which is ready for any channel you want to put them on. Quick case studies before I hand over to Uli. So these are mainly from world of medical, but not all of them. But in all of them, we did similar work. We mapped the journey. We mapped the content requirements for development. We trained people on how to create component modular content. We created guidelines and a design system for how to use the system on an ongoing basis. And we updated their metric strategy, and we ran content testing labs. We ran actual laboratory tests for content to see how it did against our refresh metrics. This is an example from a global financial technology company. and we were serving out to engineers. And the engineer, we had metrics instead of things like clicks and likes and shares, we had things like time to answer. When they were looking at a content, when they were looking at a piece of content made of well-structured modules, how long did it take them to find their answer in that content? So we would time them, and they took an average of 125 seconds to be able to find the answer before, and we got that down to 70 seconds. So we're able to say people are now 42% faster in finding the content in these nicely structured modules. Their overall satisfaction went up significantly. Their confidence, which is really a powerful metric, went up by 27%. Confidence is what keeps people from calling you. Confidence says, okay, I found the answer myself. I don't have to call my salesperson and confirm. I don't have to call the support line and confirm. I don't have to keep wasting my own time searching because I'm confident I found the right answer. So that's a very powerful metric to track. And then straight up accuracy. They were finding wrong answers a lot of the time because the old content was too big a wash of words and it wasn't properly broken up, etc. This is in patients for a pharmaceutical company. Huge difference there, because before they were getting content that was sort of like a recycled version of the doctor content instead of something that was really thought of to be for them. So we were able to reuse content between doctors and patients, but we structured it in a way and we used the modules strategically in a way that made patients much happier. So they felt it was much better organized for their needs. We were taking effort out of their work, and we even were able to measure empathy as a metric. And they felt that they were being respected as people because we were serving them the modules that were relevant for them and not just offering them this big document, which was not really appropriate for their needs. And then straight up reuse. This one is more for the management. This is content for healthcare professionals in this case study with 77% reuse on production content. So if you imagine, if you only had to create original content 23% of the time, everything else was pre-translated, ready to go for formatting, ready to go for compliance review, the sheer savings that would give you. So we've done many dozens and dozens and dozens of these projects. We've gotten to a point from where one master source, we've had clients automating the creation of 20 personalized variations for different audiences, applications, industries, and interests in 2 formats in 55 different languages. So if you do the math, for every source that we were putting in, we were getting 2,200 outputs. So that's quite a lot of leverage and an ROI for your efforts. So I'm going to show you one last example, which is going to lead into what Uli is going to show you, this idea of content product management. So these modules that I was talking about, some of you might find them a little bit scary. I just wanted to say it's not as foreign as it sounds. We all, I think in this call, probably all at least made it through high school. Even a basic education involves structured writing. So when we wrote an essay, we had to write an introduction that had a thesis, which had summary of arguments. And then we had our arguments, which each had our evidence, and then our conclusion. So we understand that there's such a thing as how to write the structure of an essay. Modular writing is just learning and using some new brand-specific structures. Content modeling is defining structures to support your brand and your user needs. And then also the tags used on and in the modules. So authors, citations, quotations, what are all the things that you are going to need to tag? So prices, brand names, product names, countries, etc. That's content modeling, and that's structured content. So if we have another example, like a white paper, that might have tags like the title, dates, subject tags. Every white paper might have an abstract section with an introduction, where we always do a problem statement, key points, lead in, and then we talk about the author, and we have the rest of the white paper. So let's say we have these 2 white papers, which you're going to see more about in a minute. So I've got 2 white papers, one by Carrie and one by Jan. One is called the New Operating Model for Pharma, and one's COVID-19's impact on the CPG industry. So they're both tagged with COVID-19. They both have their different authors, but they are both relevant for anyone researching COVID in business. So they have the same structure. They have the way that they're written is consistent, so they have they're going to be consistent experience. And what this allows us to do is put them in reuse modules between them. So certain findings might be the same, certain statements or items between two white papers might be reusable. So they're reaching in from this common pool of modules in the middle. But even more interesting, so like we could be using findings, case studies, videos, calls to action, etc., for more outputs, more channels, faster, more personalized, higher quality. But what I really wanted to show you is that each of these white papers is going to end with their white paper call to action. But we can also reuse that whole thing as a whole product. So if we take the entire white paper product and we want to make a new product out of it, an ebook, we could take our white papers and they become big modules inside a larger structure. So now we've got our white papers in here. We've got our author modules, which we move down to the bottom, and we have added a new ebook call to action. And now we have a white paper, an ebook, which is a compilation of white papers. And our white paper CTAs stay behind. So all this creation of derivatives and reuse and variations is extremely powerful. And now with artificial intelligence, you can get even faster to explore, draft, and create these kind of variations. If I wanted to create the different CTAs or different introductions, summaries, how could I do all that? Okay, so I am going to wrap up there. And it is time to see how this actually might work in practice. So I'm going to hand over to Uli. I'm going to stop my share here.
Thank you very much. And I will take over the sharing part. There we go. So Noz was talking really about very important aspects about modular content and specifically the benefits from it. There's so much to talk about. He was touching also the journey orchestration components and all of those things. I want to focus really on the content creation and really two important aspects in that whole setup. What you see here, hopefully on my screen, is the CoreMedia Studio. This is the editorial tooling in CoreMedia's experience platform. So this is where the editor works. And really, number one, if you have 2,200 variations of content, is an immense need to stay in control. So you can easily say, yeah, preview. Well, of course, but there's more than just a preview, as you can see in here. I can really navigate through all of these components. So me as the editor, I truly understand what my consumer is doing, what's above the fold, what's below the fold, website. Of course, let's also look into the mobile view here and see how that component looks like. All of that is responsive. All of this is adaptive. But again, control is important. And notice what happened to my content in here. Very easily, it adapts to the component. But there's more about control. You see that little track wheel in here. This is where I can jump into the different kind of aspects of my engagement with my consumer. And I can do those nice little things that Noz was talking about, having the teaser on top based on which newsletter, so to speak, CTA, the consumer was clicking on. I can simulate all of that and stay in control of this aspect. Of course, there are also options to track personalized content, or let's switch channels because Noz was talking about that as well. How about we see our content in the Google AdSense scenario or in general, providing our content to other consumers? He was talking about that one as well. Social media, newsletters, we all know about this, but notice that I have everything here in one preview and pointed out we are in hybrid CMS, so it doesn't matter if I'm a headless front end or if I'm a classical head-based delivery. it is really important that me as the editor sees all of these outcomes. And I can really play around with this. That is also an efficiency driver. Notice here on my left side, we have the components nicely separated into what we call sections of the page. So I can play around with this. How about those two teasers? If I want to move them around, just simple drag and drop movements that I can do in here to rearrange content. But it's not just about rearranging. That's also, I would say, fairly straightforward. But how about switching into different kind of ways how this content is being displayed? Well, you see here, I just switched one drop down and now my content is being rendered in what we call a portrait banner. In my demo site here, I also have the option to switch into a landscape banner. So I can play around with this, and I can do this because I know all of these variations. Doesn't matter where I put that content, which channel content, which responsive or whatever kind of view, I am confident that my content looks good. And let me show you how I can do this. Let me go and create something from scratch. In this case, let me drag that into the screen. I just simply prepared a Word document here, and Noz was inspiring me when he talked so much about the medical field. So I took something that is a little bit less the regular content here. I have a study about the COVID-19 impact with a few data points and tables in there, some formatting, images and all of that, mainly because I don't want you to watch me typing for 20 minutes. And all I have to do, just drag and drop that content here directly into my upload field and upload the content. Of course, there are ways to also combine that with APIs and all of those things that I don't have to do this manually all the time. Again, it's supposed to show you how you can build that from scratch. So now what has happened here is that we map that content. And if I scroll down, I see also, hey, that has slightly changed. This is now the layout that I'm using for the web compared to what Word is standardly doing. But I also have the images involved. I also have the formatting maintained. So I'm good to go. I have my first content. So then let me talk more about the different variations, because Noz was pointing it out. Well, that's one variation. Let me scroll down. What else can you see in here? Oh, look at this. The system created all the different teaser variation for whatever channel I would use my content, right? And this is how I can, as the editor, be confident that wherever I'm using my content, in a newsletter, social media, even in-store displays, IoT, I'm pretty sure, virtual reality, all of these aspects come to your mind as well. Scrolling down, I have the complete control over it, including, for example, very non-digital channels that I have just a few ideas here at the background. You can really customize that specifically to your needs and your situation. So, but of course, let's work a little bit here on our content, because I also want to dive in how the modular content helps me. So number one, let me just find here a little bit of spot in the area and open up my library. Of course, omnichannel delivery, well, also omnichannel input. For example, let's go to my YouTube channel here. By the way, you have noticed I borrowed the content from McKinsey and Company. So I'm sticking with that theme because they also have a nice little video about their COVID research. So all I'm doing here is going to their YouTube channel. And you can see here, I can access the content. All I have to do is just simple drag and drop movement into my content, even if it's very text heavy in here. And I'm including now a multimedia object. And if I scroll down, look at this. We have our video, we can play it, and I have our content in there. So another one of those Lego pieces example that Noz was talking about. Noz was also talking about the problem that you build a campaign, the campaign was going, you get some attention. He was telling that the agencies are running away. I'm skipping that part here a little bit, but then the campaign almost gets forgotten, but other people might still be interested, even 3 months, 5 months, 6 months later. So why do it a one-time campaign? It is still relevant content for other people at a different moment. So it's also very important to have related content associated with it. And you can see that in here, the system also highlighting me the section telling me, hey, you should do this. So let me follow the recommendation here of my tool and go all the way to my feedback hub and let me have the system help me with some suggestions. What might be related content? How about, for example, the sustainability article? Notice I didn't even look into this article, but I can be assured the teaser will look good, right? Manual, super simple. Let's crank it up a notch. How about we create a dynamic list based on, for example, buzzwords? We are all about COVID here. So let's create what we call a query list. This allows me, based on certain criteria, to render content. Right now, the criteria is very broad, so let's tone it down to only talk about white papers in ebooks. Again, typical, not content necessarily for a website, but I just want to play around here with the possibilities that I have. And I would also like to reduce that based on a tagging. Noz was talking about that one as well. If you have smaller pieces of content, tagging, metadata in general is really helping you to find the relevant content quickly and draw those associations between those contents. Of course, you can tone it down, say the newest or the latest and greatest top. And I would also only like to have 2 elements and not whatever I have. So look at this for the content. We have here our views. And again, query list. I do see the preview of all of my different variations in here, right? And how can I place it? Very the same way like we did it with the manual content. So from manual selected content that we have in here, right, I can also include dynamically generated content. And again, it all looks good because the system is generating these various assets. So let's dive into the idea of a white paper. Using here my preview-based editing because I really don't want to find my content. I make myself easy and just open this content directly from the preview. Another nice little feature to stay in control because sometimes you just want to navigate to something and find your elements. So this is here an actual ebook. And again, I have my preview and my ebook and scroll, scroll, scroll. You see the white papers that Noz was also talking about. So this is not just one big content. I will show you that one in a second. This is actually a larger chunk of content with what you see in here. We got citations, we got infographics, even got the information about the authors. But I want to scroll to another idea. How about a slide deck? Maybe not used in the B2C world, in the B2B world, but how about the educational space, right? And I can just see how would that content be generated in the slide deck. The system is doing that for me based on the content. And if you see that here on the left side, if I scroll down to the item section, let me just collapse the other components to not confuse everyone. This is the 2 items that Noz was showing in this example, 2 white papers. But of course, I can add ebook specific details. Here are very short, admittedly abstract, nothing specific as a call to action button. But in the ebook scenario, it's a different call to action than on the simple white papers. So again, we are one Lego piece and we separated them or built them with based on 2 white papers. Let's dive into the white paper. Again, I think you see the pattern here. Got my preview of my white paper. I can see exactly how my content looks like. And if I look into the item section, you see in here again, modular components. So my texture components, there are infographics that I have in here. So I can reuse them across white papers in multiple ebooks, but also in other kind of content pieces, even yes, post them out on social media or in print material. And the same principle, how to use that. Let me scroll all the way to the top. You see here within the food industry, huge spike of demand. That's my first infographic. Let's maybe put something else on top. All I have to do is just drag and drop my content in here and drag it all the way to the beginning because it's a module, right? It's a module content piece that I can just rearrange. And as I said, you can reuse that. You can individually address that content piece. Remember the idea about Google AdSense to provide those components to something else, because he can individually address these components. He can individually tag for SEO purposes, but also from a topic perspective, draw the connections between those systems. This is how easy you can work with modular content. And as you can see, Lego pieces all the way through. So now we talked about how to create content. Let me also show one more thing that is really a driver for different variations. Actually, there are two things that I want to quickly talk about. Number one, localization, which is technically a form of personalization as well, but I want to address that one separately, very slightly. Localization. Remember that we have this US manufacturing output. I'm pretty sure you have studies for this kind of components across the world. So now that I have my content for all of my digital channels, but this is my English speaking world, and maybe even my US specific, because this data coming in here is US specific data. So how do I roll that one out internationally? So I'm starting that with a simple workflow. You can, of course, use different kind of workflows. I'm just using here an integration with our friends from Global Link to do the actual translation, but I really want to focus on the localization. So I'm talking about that one in a second. We have here our content piece, and the system helped me also with all the content pieces that are linked to it, because of course we would like to have these content items connected, but also localized in this way. Perfect. Last but not least, let me check the different locations. Looking at the time, let me make my life a little bit easy and just pick the German option, because first of all, I'm speaking German. And secondly, it's easy to identify that this is actually localized. You will see that in a second. But what now happened? We are sending out these content pieces to, in my case, an agency. It could also be an API, AI-driven API. It could be a set of colleagues on the other side of the world, so to speak, within the same system. That would be a manual translation. It's up to you how you would like to roll out the content. In my case, I really wanted to show you how the automation piece here helps us along the way. It takes a few seconds for my service to return to me the localized content. There we go. So what has happened here? All of my content has been localized that I just put out for this specific story. And first thing, I'm going to accept the task, because of course we could have multiple people involved in creating campaigns. And I can open up a side-by-side view of my English on the left side, and on the right side here, my German. What did I say earlier about German? It's easy to recognize. Umlaute, that give away that you most likely talk about German. So everything is translated. And if you open up the preview here, you will also see all of these components are properly translated, including, for example, the tables here. Also, nice little aspect. Just want to point out, I took the liberty here to have the data as a table in there. Of course, this could also be connected with a service that's providing the data in real time, but that would not allow me to show you the localization here as easy, because I want to show you also that you are in full control and you can customize that. This is not just providing additional content. For example, I could see here the numbers, well, are not 100,000 cars and vehicles as it is for the US. Maybe in Germany, it's just 50,000. So I can adjust all of these components. Maybe it's just 80,000 machines and not 100,000 machines. So I can adapt that. I can go further. How about removing the image? Because, well, Germany is a little bit more focused in here. How about we use a different kind of image in here? So localizing is more than just translating. And of course, there are also other scenarios. We are in the global world. However, maybe some names are different, some texts are different. I can, however, reuse my content in here because I have the generated versions. Let me give you an example. I can go in here and find and replace color. Maybe a certain product is called one thing in one area of the world and another thing and the other way. Just give you an example. We are in the medical space here. Everyone in the US knows about the Pfizer vaccine. Well, in Germany, it's called the BioNTech. Well, it's a great vaccine that actually was implemented by both, but they're just having different spaces or different names. That doesn't mean, however, that the studies about the actual vaccine cannot be used across both. You just replace, for example, here, Pfizer, and do it either with single replacement or multiple replacement. That's up to you. But again, I want to show you that you can localize your content very quickly in that space. So now that I have my variations and I can scroll down, you see here even my YouTube video is included with obviously translated teaser components. Also, my related content is still there, also localized properly. My authors in there, let me quickly look what else has Jan created. Oh, look at this. This is even a dynamically generated page based on tagging. Again, metadata, big important aspect. But you can see with me uploading a simple Word document, the system generated for me all kinds of variations, so I can use my content really across all of my different output channels. Yes, even non-digital output channels, talked about the rest before, in-store, digital signage, even beyond the, I would say, almost classic digital channels like we have it before. So with now I have the localization. Remember that I could do this for how many locales you would like to roll out this text, how quickly that was, a few seconds that I waited for it, then I customized it, maybe make it a little bit more specific for the German market, and off you go. All I have to do, click on my next step button in here and finish my localization after I went through all of these components, and everything is good to go. Everything now is ready for me to use. Personalization, very similar. Remember, we talked about this one. You would like to address the individual pieces. Now you can. All I have to do is apply the rules. And Noz, I think you used the example from before, a simple referrer, right? If I'm coming from a newsletter, then I have a referrer in my URL. Now I can act on it. But because I have the individual components and not full pages, I can just simply replace my static content with a dynamic content that allows you to do the ruling. If you're curious to see how that goes or anything else that you saw today, I'm happy to give you a fully fledged demo of CoreMedia. But for now, I think I'm good to go. I hopefully showed you how easy it is to generate content with CoreMedia, and especially with the complexity of modular content. Noz, back to you.
Thank you so much, Uli. I'm going to grab the screen share again. Thank you. Yes, it's great to be able to see it actually happening right before our eyes. So, yeah, that's just to wrap us up. My name again is Noz Urbina from Urbina Consulting. Yeah, so that's Urbina Consulting. OmnichannelX is our kind of newsletter and podcast, but I work for Urbina Consulting. You can get in touch on the website or following me on LinkedIn. And Ulrike has got her email there. And you can learn more on CoreMedia's website. Did you want to, Uli, Julia, did you have any last words before we move to Q&A?
Not on my side. We have 5 minutes for all of you to drop questions if you like, so don't be shy.
Fantastic. Okay, so.
Yep. Let's see if we have some questions. Yep, we have one question. Yeah, actually a few. First of all, is there a way to start small, a small company or a small proof of concept without buying a bunch of infrastructure and or committing large amounts of resource? So is there a way to start small?
Yeah, excellent question. I do talk a lot about my experience with larger companies, but even in large companies, we're often starting little pilots, proof of concepts, and what we even call content prototypes, where we are looking at the content and going and looking at how we would modularize it, how we would break it down into components, and what our reuse model might look like well before we've actually bought any software or any large investments. So it's very possible to say, let's take this into a bunch of Word documents and say, how would we restructure it for the customer journey? So think about what our customers want to do and analyze what you've currently got and say, okay, well, we talk about this over here, we talk about this over here. It really should be the same thing. Or here we have a difference, but that difference is important. Going through all that is a very important exercise and doesn't require a lot of budget. And running some experiments with your current system to say, okay, we did it with copy and paste and a lot of pain, but we did it and it was beneficial. So now now that we know that it's beneficial, let's invest in the proper software.
Yeah, thank you. Time for another question. Yeah. Do people reject reuse and structure because it takes away creative freedom? I guess it's for both of you.
Well, do you want to go first?
Definitely. So no, the important part here is that the content reuse is helping you. As I mentioned, remember that scenario that we have our story and I would like to have additional content. This is how you can really engage with your consumers. They might in this moment look for something specific, but they say, oh, there's more to explore. We already have the B2C scenario of an endless aisle for a long, long time. So the benefit is here you actually make more of your content because it allows you to present all the content that you have in a structured way to your consumer, right? So the content approach, and you saw me clicking around, I could just rechange the templating, or let me say it this way, the presentation of the content, but simply by a drop down. I don't even have to go through a developer all the time. And I can do this for all these different kind of content pieces. So there's even more creativity because you have content that is reusable in all those different variations. So I definitely say separating content from presentation, this is really helping you to be creative. What do you think, Noz?
Well, I'm going to say yes and no. So I would agree with everything you said, but I would say before people see that, I do see initial pushback. I see before they understand how they can be creative in this new environment, their first reaction can be, but I want to do things exactly as I want to do them. You know, you can get a little bit of the professional artist reaction. You know, don't interrupt my process. And so what I found to address that is planning. You know, thinking about modules not at the end when you've got everything worked out and now you're just chopping it. You've created your statue and now you're trying to saw it into pieces. But at the beginning, before you built it, think about how am I going to answer people's questions, and thinking then, okay, so what modules do I want? If people plan in the first place, then when it gets to the modules, it's very natural. If you kind of try to force modules at the end of their workflow, then they can kind of feel that they're trying to jam their work into this structure which they hadn't had in mind. So it depends. Once they've made the shift, people are happy. But I'm not going to say the transition is always easily done if you haven't planned for it properly.
Yeah. Definitely fair point.
Well, thank you. I'm just conscious of everyone's time here. I guess it's a wrap for today. Well, if some questions haven't been answered, please feel free to reach out directly to Noz or Uli. You have their email addresses on this slide. Again, the recording will be available for you after the event. Thank you, Uli. Thank you, Noz, for this great session. And of course, thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of the day and be in touch.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.